Hello everybody, it's me, Player Negative, and today we're talking about the Blue Blur himself. That's right, Sonic the Hedgehog. So, today, since Sonic Racing World Racing is going to be coming out soon, and because generally I feel obligated to try to make a better specification or retrospect video since my Mario video was a little bit floppy, I'm going to cover all three eras of Sonic. Now, for the sake of this video, we're only touching on the mainline Sonic games or Sonic games that are connected to the main storyline. IDW comics will be the exception, but no Archie comics, no side games, and no spin-offs. Those will not count. Now, today we're only going to be touching on the classic era, which you might think, okay, that's straightforward, there's not much there. But actually, there's a lot more than you people expect because America only had one side of the story, some of the characters. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, we can't talk about Sonic without bringing up some development history. Sonic was part of a 5-point strategy plan in Sega's team in order to defeat Mario and Nintendo, to create a mascot who basically contrasted him. All the way back in 1991, Yuji Naka presented the design of Sonic the Hedgehog. But before they landed on a hedgehog, they were actually planning to make a rabbit. The reason they landed on a hedgehog was mainly due to the fact that a hedgehog's ability to roll up in a ball made a lot more sense to the game's overall mechanics of more pinball-based situation. And before you say anything, why Super Sonic is not the same as the Super Saiyan design. Why, it's actually inspired by a cut Super Saiyan sketch that Yuji Naka was given or borrowed to actually draw inspiration from that. Yuji Naka was actually very close friends with the artist and director of Dragon Ball. Before they landed on a hedgehog, though, they were actually planning on doing a rabbit. Now, this is a fan renditioning of the rabbit, but I just liked it so much that I had to show in the video. And you know, I'm not plagiarizing it because I'm still keeping the original artist's name on the picture. Overall, I kind of like the design, and I like how people are going back to this and starting to refurbish it. With that out of the way, let's get into it. The story begins with Sonic the Hedgehog roaming through Green Hills when all of a sudden a strange man by the name of Professor Ivo Robotnik is locating 6 random powerful gems in order and kidnapping random animals that live on his island and turning them into robots. Since he looked at this and had absolutely none of this, he rushed through 8 several different zones in order to defeat him, collecting the 6 gemstones to restore his land. Now, the first Sonic game doesn't have much in it to entail it, so we're going to jump right next into the next game in the series timeline-wise, which, surprisingly enough, isn't Sonic 2. It's actually Tails Adventure for the Sega Game Gear. Tails Adventure actually predates the original Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and also was the first game to show off Tails' technical skills, while the rest of the American audience figured this out through Adventure 1 and 2. Tails was minding his own personal business on his island when all of a sudden a group of chickens, or robotic-looking chickens, showed up on his island, wreaking havoc. Despite it being his first adventure, he used his technical ingenuity to basically beat them, and after that, he noticed distress coming from Westside Island and came over there as quickly as possible, which is where he ran into Sonic. When Sonic beat Eggman in the first game, he headed to Westside Island as a much-deserved rest or like a vacation. Unbeknownst to him, Tails, being the maniacal genius that he is, saw the plane and modified it to withstand tougher wind speed and becoming faster. Rather than being mad that someone was messing with his plane, Tails was actually flattered by Sonic and actually liked the fact that he was modifying it to be faster. However, trouble was brewing and Eggman was searching for the Chaos Emeralds yet again. Tails deciding to follow him and helped him to manage to use his speed to be able to spin dash, which if you didn't own a magazine or a manual back in 1992, you would know that Tails invented the spin dash. Like the first game, it's pretty straightforward. 8 zones and then the boss fight, but with one twist. After collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds, he was able to achieve Super Sonic, and Tails was able to achieve it as well, if he had a chance to get the emeralds, that is. Now, this is where I have to introduce one of the most iconic bosses that'll be known for a little bit later on. Mecha Sonic, a robot double, the first in a long line of robot doubles built to outdo Sonic himself. Mecha Sonic was inspired by Mechagodzilla from old kaiju movies, and was the first in a long line of fights. After Sonic collects all 7 Chaos Emeralds and goes Super, he engages in a massive boss fight with Eggman in space, before destroying the Death Egg and getting on top of the tornado. Tails is also very skilled enough of repairing the thing after it's shot down. Let me rephrase that. An 8-year-old has the technician skills to repair a plane as it's crashing down to Earth in a situation that would probably kill him. However, the Death Egg, while it was destroyed, it still remained intact, or bits of it, as it crashed on a place called Angel Island. Now, before we move on to the third game, there's a bit of an issue I need to explain. You see, the game's called Sonic 3 and Knuckles because the original cartridge for the Sega Genesis, while it was superior to the NES, it was very limited, so the game had to be split into 2 cartridges. However, there was a special docking technology, which they definitely should have patented to prevent Nintendo from making the Switch, where basically you had to stick both cartridges together in order to play. The game itself was generally interesting with this concept, where basically if you plug in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you would get the full game. Where if you plugged Sonic and Knuckles into Sonic 2, you would get to play as Knuckles in Sonic 2. It's a good novelty, and while the technology is dated, it's a pretty interesting concept. Anyways, let's get to the story. Oh yeah, one other thing to mention. Sonic's dynamic with Knuckles is a lot less buddy-buddy like Tails, and more like a bromance like Jason Momoa and Jack Black from the Minecraft movie. After the events of Sonic 2, the Death Egg crashed on a random floating plane of land called Angel Island, where Eggman ran into a echidna warrior by the name of Knuckles. Now, before you say anything about him, it's a common misconception that people think the reason why Eggman easily tricked him was because Knuckles is stupid and a big klutz. No, the movies kind of got that wrong, and a few other things kind of confusing, but actually it's because he's alone and he believes everyone has the same moral standards and honor that he does. So he buys what this man is saying because he doesn't know whether or not that humanity can be cruel and lie. He explains that Sonic was the one who crashed the Death Egg, stole the Chaos Emeralds from him, and is an Emerald thief. Since Knuckles has a giant Master Emerald, which is the only force that can neutralize the Chaos Emeralds, he's not letting Sonic get near that thing within a heartbeat. So he agrees with Eggman to help him kill Sonic. And right off the bat, we see an example of the Guardian's power in action, because when you boot up the game and see Super Sonic fly across the river, Knuckles beats the ever-loving crap by punching the emeralds right out of him, leading to the first act of the game on Angel Island. From here, you can basically play the game normally and go through 8 special zones with their own killer soundtracks. Not to mention, there's a round 2 with a very particular someone you should know. However, it isn't until Sonic discovers the Master Emerald that Eggman's true colors fully show, and he steals it from him. Making him feel washed up and duped, he decides to team up with Sonic and help him by breaking a few barriers to shortcuts only he knows because he's lived on the island for so long. From there, it's an attack up to the Death Egg 2 with Sonic and Knuckles, and a rematch against a certain character in Sky Sanctuary, a certain temple within the area. This is where I have to introduce you to Metal Sonic Mark II. Unlike the metal failure that came before, Mecha Sonic Mark II tries to actually adjust and be more like the blue counterpart. He's just as fast and as intelligent as Eggman is, with various other skills later on. And even though he does lose in his first and only ever appearance, he does show up back in again in the IDW comics with his own solo story. After a brawl in Sky Sanctuary, the gang heads up to Eggman's headquarters and defeats him, restoring the Master Emerald in its right place, and with Sonic and Tails riding off into the sunset while Knuckles sits back with his new responsibility of keeping the Master Emerald safe, but this time he'll be a little more precautious. Alright, everyone, that's it. Goodbye. See ya. Just joking, we gotta address Knuckles' spin off games. Also, one of the biggest controversies in the entire Sonic fandom, Hypersonic. Now, if you did get the little cartridge dock of Sonic and Knuckles and Sonic 3, you would get a special little prize for beating the game and getting all 7 Chaos Emeralds called Hypersonic, which was basically an Ultra Super form. You see, if you manage to find Knuckles and follow him into the secret sanctuary where the Emerald is kept, you could complete 7 special stages to earn a stronger supersonic form with a 1 insta-kill attack ability. However, a lot of fans were weirded out or generally didn't like the concept of this only being exclusive to classic Sonic games and wanted to show up in the modern ones. Due to a lot of arguments, the Sonic Twitter group, which by they do work for Sega, do not actually govern certain things like lore implications, out of a fit of rage, yelled that Hypersonic isn't canon and decided that only hedgehogs, male hedgehogs to be specifically, could go super, and that whatever happened with Tails and Knuckles wasn't canon, which made a lot of people upset and was clearly untrue, but it's been fixed now due to people like Ian Flynn and other members of the Sonic community who work for Team Sega disproving this in interviews. Anyways, let's get into Team Chaotix and Knuckles. This was one of Knuckles' 2 other spin-off games, the other one being Sonic Trio Trouble. And if you're wondering who's protecting the Master Emerald, well, he actually had a brother for a brief time called Kruckles, though no one talks about him, so it's assumed he's either retconned or been cut out of the canon lore. Anyways, this game evolves around more of a rubber bands type physics with the Sonic-like aspect, but with multiple characters. You got Charmy the Bee, SBO the Chameleon, and Vector the Crocodile, which these guys are very important later on in the modern games, and Vector's the only confirmed Christian character within the games. Nintendo doesn't respect religion or want it in, yet Sega's okay with it. Just something I wanted to bring up. The game is pretty much the same as other classic Sonic games. Get all the Chaos Emeralds, beat the bad guy, except instead of Eggman you're dealing with Metal Sonic, which is where the continuity of the canon timeline starts to break because of Metal Sonic's constant situation. You see, after Mecha Mark 1 and Mecha Mark 2, Eggman decided to create a new Sonic robot. This one was Metal Sonic. Not only was he stronger, but he's also the same speed and skill of Sonic, but minus the snobby personality, and has more of a sense of control and loyalty to Eggman. Also, occasionally, when he gets the Chaos Emeralds, he's able to turn into monsters like a giant dragon, or what you're seeing in the background right over there. That's nothing compared to Metal Overlord's form. But with that out of the way, let's move on to Sonic CD. Sonic CD, the game that predates Team Knuckles and Chaotix, but comes after Sonic and Knuckles. This was one of the first few games to have an animated intro and a really cool soundtrack, as well as many different levels. Here, I'll show you a clip. I cut out the sound due to the copyright laws, though. Hope you enjoy that. Now let's get into the game. The game itself has a different premise. Instead of collecting 7 Chaos Emeralds, you're collecting 8 Time Stones in order to change the timeline that Eggman has corrupted of a place called Little Planet, which he's trying to convert into an industrial machine. Which basically kind of follows a similar plot to Avengers Endgame. But apart from that, in your way stands Metal Sonic, a robot copy of you which was better than all the others that came before it. There's also speculation and theories that since it evolves around time travel, that Sonic failed in one timeline and Eggman turned Sonic into a robot, which, if you read the comics and played other games, he is able to do, and it's very common that he can do. Some versions of the comic refer to it as roboticizing. Just notice, but that's not canon here, so we don't have to worry about that, and it is just a theory. Again, it's not the same without him. It's not the same without Matthew Patrick, is it? Anyways, the game basically has several different courses, and it was the first to introduce Amy Rose, a sort of love interest character, but Yuji Naka didn't like that, so it kind of made it more of a friend. From there, the game was also compatible where you could play as Sonic and Knuckles or Tails if you put it in through the dock, but apart from that, the game's pretty good, with interesting challenges, a lot of inspiration from African American musicians, and several stages with interesting levels and combat. Also, the match between Sonic and Metal Sonic is a special race on Stardust Speedway where you have to outrun a laser, otherwise you lose from the door closing on you or from Metal Sonic beating you in the game. You can also use the Chaos Emeralds to fight back and get the good ending, and honestly, the game's interesting. Its time travel mechanic creates interesting and creative platforming, and there's a lot of tricky situations that show up, but this was only the start of a great story and rivalry. And from there, Sonic defeats Eggman and restores the timeline to a better future. Well, that's the end of the classic era of Sonic. Tune in next time where I talk about the adventure era and what started some of the best iconic characterizations of the extended Sonic cast. I'm Player Negative, and that's all. Hope you enjoyed the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Also, I would really appreciate it if you would help me reach the area of 20k subs or any more. I would like to thank my family and my closest friends and all my subscribers for helping me get this far. Honestly, I didn't think I would ever make anything good on this channel, but I thank you for all of that.